Hello there, this is Denzin, and today I'm looking at this, Advanced Heroquest. Probably not as famous as HeroQuest, the game that everyone seems to harp on about. But Advanced Heroquest came later by GW as a way of, I suppose, capitalising on the success of HeroQuest for its Warhammer audience. It seems to be forgotten about this game. A lot of people talk about either HeroQuest or Warhammer Quest, which came after this in the mid-90s. This came about 5 years earlier, about 1990. And for me, this is my favourite. Nobody else's favourite, but it's my favourite. A Jervis Johnson game. Dungeon delving at its best, and it's most lethal, I have to say. And it's that classic late 80s style box that you got from Games Workshop. A bit of a take on the HeroQuest cover, a little bit different. A bit odd that they did this as well, because these aren't the characters you get in Advanced HeroQuest, but they're stuck with the characters from HeroQuest, which is a bit strange. Orcs, Chaos Warriors, and so on. You don't get any of that in this game. It's all Skaven. But there's no Skaven on the front cover, unless this sort of chap in the background is a Skaven. But we're never going to know, because it's so well hidden. So I think this was designed to grab the HeroQuest fans and take them to that next level. Maybe as a way of getting kids who've got HeroQuest to get into more traditional GW games and advance, obviously, their way into the hobby. Maybe. I don't know if that works, to be honest with you. Also, rules for solo play. Ooh. And that odd little thing they always stuck in a corner, 3D roleplay hobby game. Is it? I think this game's probably the closest they did to a sort of a 3D roleplay hobby game, to be honest. Heroic roleplay in a world of magic and mayhem, very Warhammer Fantasy roleplay, really. That I suppose you could use that for Warhammer Fantasy roleplay. This kit, quite useful if you use minis in your role-playing games. For me, when it comes to HeroQuest, as I say, this was my favourite. I got HeroQuest late on. For example, HeroQuest was usually people's entry into Games Workshop. For me, it wasn't. I'd already had other games. I'd had Blood Bowl, for example, and some of the other games I've reviewed on this channel. So Advanced HeroQuest was... I preferred it to HeroQuest, which I thought was me dumbing down a bit. Even though I was a kid at the time, it was like, oh, HeroQuest, that's the one designed for kids. Even though I was a kid, and it was designed for me. I'd already got into the Games Workshop bug. So for me, I felt a bit more grown up playing this one. Preferred it. But let's just have a look at it. So if I pop the lid off, yeah, again, Barbarian. There's no Barbarian in this. It's very much in the Warhammer world, this one. Actually, before I take the lid off and show the goodies, let's flip it over and break everything inside the box. There we go. I do like the back of this box, because there's the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay cover. And there we have our lovely Skaven. Very Skaven orientated on the back. And I always love this little picture here of someone with the game set up on their table, looking at the shelves in the background going, oh, I wish I had shelves like that with games on it. Which of course now I do. But yeah, so we have the heroes who we get in the box. Our Empire Warrior, our Elf, our Dwarf, our Wizard. The typical group, really. And a bit of blurb, of course, about the game and what we get in it. But if I flip it back over, there we go. Take that lid off. There's everything all squished off to one side. What's on the side of this one? Really nice diorama there. Warriors fighting their way through a horde, mainly Skaven. This side we have a little painting tutorial, which is a bit strange, on the side of a box. How to paint our warrior and our Skaven. And around this side we have other games available. Got to have that. What did you have on the side of this box? Had. Oh, I had all that. Oh, I could tick the whole box off. There we go. How many of us do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. What's around this side? A Citadel Miniatures collection. What you might need to add to your games. You can buy them in metal. There they are. But if we go back to the box, which I've now made skew with and all over the place, what did you get inside it? So unlike HeroQuest original, you don't get a board in the traditional sense. You had tiles, which you might be familiar with if you played Warhammer Quest. They do jigsaw together, obviously not two dead ends together, but you create your dungeon as you go. And I liked this because when Warhammer Quest came out, I thought it wasn't as good because I didn't like the tiles, the way they just sort of sat next to each other as rooms and so on. This one, you went around corners and it just felt a bit more organic to me. I don't know. Maybe I was just being a stickler to the old stuff. You do get a bit of cardboard for your ring binder. So you might remember in White Dwarf they would put in scenarios and advanced rules, and they'd always have a little hole punch mark so you could cut it out your magazine and ruin it forever, and put everything in a ring binder, which I did do, and ruined many a White Dwarf by doing that. But good to see I've still got that. Inside we have our minis. Let's have a look at our minis. So what we've got in here, these are henchmen who you can hire to help you in your missions. So you have men-at-arms and henchmen, and to show the difference between the two, these ones have halberds and some have swords. I don't know if I can focus that. There we go, look at those fellas. So typical men-at-arms, plastic, round bases. Now that's a bit odd for this game. I ought to rebase these on square bases because it just doesn't fit right on the board when you've got a round base. I mean, yeah, especially when you start getting them all in next to each other. It's just a bit, no, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So maybe I'll rebase these, which is a shame because obviously they came in round bases. And I don't know why they did that. I mean, Warhammer Fantasy always had square bases. So why did they put round bases on these fellas? Oh well. But yeah, during the game you can hire mercenaries. So you can go hire these henchmen to come and help you out, to give you a few more men to go back into the dungeon, because you keep getting your bottom kicked. So you need these extra fellas to die on your behalf. So good to have some grunts in the game, not just the heroes. The heroes, a couple more henchmen there who fell out. There we go. Where are our heroes? There's the Heinrich, I think they called him in the game. There's the Empire Knight. Where is he? Can you get me in focus? Ooh. Not really. But yes, there he is. I repainted these not long ago. Well, I say not long ago, probably about 5 years ago. Plastic one-piece figures. Although I think the shield was glued on. Who else do we have in here? We have the wizard. What was his name? Magnus, was it? Bright Wizard. There he is. We have an elf and a dwarf in here somewhere. Aha, where are they hiding? Oh, I don't really know. Oh, there they are in the corner. There's our dwarf with his winged helmet and his hammer. Gotta have a hammer. And our elf. Obviously, they're best of friends. There they are. With his top knot and his bow. The rest of the minis are Skaven. Plastic Skaven. Whole bag of plastic Skaven. All exactly the same, I think. Yeah, I think they are all exactly the same. Again, all on round bases. He had to glue the shields on. He had different styles of shield. Lots and lots of Skaven. And that was probably one of the bad things about this game. All the monsters were the same. It's just Skaven, Skaven, Skaven. And I think there's 20 plastic Skaven. You could paint the stands a different colour to show that some are champions, I suppose. Just to show the difference. Or maybe a different shield. But yeah, all plastic Skaven. Old school Skaven as well. But at least their tails were attached. None of that business. Some monsters had more than one wound, so you could keep track of that with counters. Little wound counters there, skulls on them. Very nice. Always got to have skull. You had a game master in this, unless you're playing it solo. So game masters would have little counters they could play during the game to make the hero's life a misery. So you could have an ambush where more Skaven turn up, and you just play these whenever. So a character, bring on some characters. You had traps, of course, and so on. So, maybe your men can run away in good Skaven style. So you could play these to give you bonuses and so on throughout the game. and keep the heroes on their toes with various shenanigans. 12-sided dice in this game. That was all you had, 12-sided dice. Doors, which are a little bit fiddly. The door open, and they always bloody pop off, like this one. But that was the problem with this one. Probably that's why they got rid of that for Warhammer Quest. You always had these sort of portal doorways, didn't you? But these ones did swing open, so you could model it open and closed when it's time to close. But yeah, they're fiddly and they snap off quite regularly. So we have a number of doors. So in the game, you go around all the corridors, and when you find a door, you open the door and you roll to see what's on the other side of the door. And it'll usually be a room, and you roll to see what sort of room, and then you roll to see what's in the room. So you might find encounters like treasure chests, we've got pools, we've got thrones. You could 3D these up with a bit of pits. There you go, some traps. So if you've got some model furniture and you want to use that instead of the cardboard standees, so there we go, you got a throne. You could obviously replace them with models, couldn't you? Pits, probably not. Chasms to fall into. So you have a number of corridor tiles. You always start on a set of stairs going down into the dungeon, and you always had a couple of tunnel sections together, like so. Right, let's put these down on the board. There we go. And there'd be a T-junction at the very end. Every game's kind of started like that. And then when you got to the end, you roll to see what's around the corner, and it would show you how many pieces of tunnel there would be, whether or not there was any doors, and did it end at a corner, a T-junction, or a dead end. And if there's no doors, you could search the corridor for any hidden doors, you might find them. But once you've gone through the corridors and into the rooms, you roll to see what the sort of rooms are, and then you roll to see what's in the rooms. And you had different types of rooms. You had normal rooms, so little square rooms like this. There could be hazard rooms, which would have special things in them, such as the chasm, the throne, mold, fungus, trapdoor, all sorts of things that you'd have to investigate. And they were the most fun rooms, really. There might be little lairs. Usually it's the large rooms, I think, that are lairs. And there'll be a lot more monsters in them. But what you're looking for is the quest rooms. And the quest rooms will be the sort of end of dungeon room, where there'll be more treasure, harder monsters to fight. And if you're doing a multi-layered dungeon, usually that's where they'd say there was stairs going down to the next level. And you'd have to find that quest room to get down to the next level. And usually dungeons had about 3 levels, and down you go. Really nicely done as well, these tiles. They look nice, really nice. So you can imagine the corridors next to them like so. So you create your system, and then you get your doors in between the two. Like that, you see, in you go. And the monsters in there will be rolled up, so that'll be very random. And that's what I liked about this game, randomness. Random corridors, random rooms, random monsters. And if you, depending on what you roll, you could be randomly walking around forever, because you have to draw a map of where you are, what's going on. In the main rulebook, there was a game-mastered quest, Quest for the Shattered Amulet, which you may have spotted, I have here. And in each quest, you find a piece of this amulet and put it together. And so usually the 3rd level down would be pre-generated with special rules and special monsters, and you have to fight your way through them. And you could find little maps giving you a hint as a player what you might find whilst exploring, which is quite nice. So if you're a game master, you can have quite a bit of fun with this. And it's very lethal. Very easy. I mean, very easy to kill your players in this game. Fireballs chasing down the corridors, Skaven running after you, and the monsters getting harder and harder. The rules, very similar to a lot of Warhammer from back in the day. Weapon skill, bow skill, strength, toughness, speed. They're all quite common things, really. Fate points you could use to help you out in case you died. But you'd find your hand-to-hand combat value, the weapon skill of your opponent, and then underneath it will tell you what you need to roll to beat it. And then once you beat it, you'd have to roll to see how much damage you did, depending on the toughness of the creature, and so on. And you can draw your map of the dungeon on here. Obviously, I've photocopied these. So as you go around, you can map your progress. We have the rule book. In fact, I've got 2 copies of the rule book. Don't ask why. But there we go. Lovely rulebook, this one. Obviously all black and white, but classic Games Workshop art, where they had lots of different artists. It wasn't all one style. It was very different. And sometimes you spot bits of artwork from different games that they've moved around. So yes, exploring the dungeon. So you're rolling up to see what's around the corner. What do you find? What do you do when you find stairs or a door? How to kill your monsters. How do they kill you, which is more often. Run away. There's Gotrek and Felix here, look. Old school Gotrek and Felix. How to use fate points, your magic spells, and the spells you could learn, being the game master. So you've got the different rooms here, the hazard rooms, all the things you can find in them. What treasure you can find. That's what everyone's after. The 4 characters you get in the game. You can roll up your own characters, so you can expand the gene pool and use whatever miniatures you've got, which is great. And there's the original HeroQuest minis, if you want to use them, which is a nice touch. And then we have our Skaven here, if you wanted to expand beyond the plastics in the box, which I did, and they're there. I'll get to them in a minute. But they also had not just Skaven, we've got Orcs and Goblins in here, Chaos, the typical monsters you'd get, Minotaurs and so on, Trolls, Traps, between expeditions, so the campaign system, which is great. Always need a campaign system. Random events in between missions. Hiring, training, spending your money, getting those henchmen in to die for you. And the nuts and bolts of a campaign. Quest ideas. If you're a game master, how to design your own missions. How to create your own heroes. And this was the fun part of the box, you know, and the rules, all these extra bits. Using the HeroQuest furniture and characters, and the board as well. They use it as a sort of maze, and you can go down into it and explore that as a bit of a side quest. And then how to play on your own as a sad sack, which is quite nice. If you just want to explore a dungeon on your own with a group of characters who are all going to die, then you can have a go. And then we have the quest for the Shattered Amulet, as I said. 4 missions to try and defeat a demon prince, a Skaven demon prince. And then we've got these extra characters like warp fire throwers, plague censer bearers, assassins as special characters. Spoilers, let's not have a look at that. What was available at the time? Citadel miniatures. Designing your own characters, monster matrices. There's the main bad guy, although the miniframe wasn't exactly as hard as nails to look at. So yeah, that's the original rulebook. As you can see, I photocopied the monster sheets. Years later, when I got back into this game as an adult, I did go on a mission to find all the Skaven on the random rolls so that I could have all the monsters required rather than just a 20 plastic Skaven. So for example, we've got here Skaven Warp Fire Thrower. So here we have the classic metal Warp Fire Thrower. Burn your way around, that's the classic. Beautiful miniature. All of these are metal, on squares, well, rectangles. Who's next? Clan Scryer Warp Weaver. Now that's a character that's disappeared over the years. What's a Warp Weaver? You don't see them now, do you? But there's my Warp Weaver. I think that's been reused now as probably as a Plague Monk, isn't it now, if you see anything looking a little bit like that. So Warp Weaver. Clan Scryer White Skaven Sorcerer. Here we go. I suppose you'd call that a Grey Seer today, wouldn't you? With his orb and his horns. Classic miniature. Clan Pestilin's Plague Censer Bearer. Where's he? Ah, here we go. Here he is. With his poison gas, swinging that around. Clan Pestilin's Plague Monk. This is a miniature I've had for many, many years. Here he is. Then we got Clan Moore's Warlord. There we are, that's his fella. If I can focus him in. There you go. I think I had to find him a shield. Lost the original shield. Clan Ishin Assassin. Lots of different versions of that. Here's one. Little rat ninja scurrying in with his blade to do you in. The main villain, Prasnaga, Prince of Agony. As I say, his actual mini, not really that intimidating, is he really? You know, you want a big rat ogre style fellow, wouldn't you? But they're all a bit smaller back in the day, weren't they? I've also got on here the figures I'd use for champions and sentries. The Giselle, the classic Giselle, and gutter runners. Then we've got the Plague Globadier with his little ball of gas. That's Lord Skrulk, isn't it? And then we have a Warlord here as well. Or Chieftain, I think he is in the game, a Chieftain. So yeah, I added to it with the metal minis, and that completed my collection. So no matter what I rolled on the tables, I had enough Skaven to do the job. I do have some White Dwarfs which had the extra scenarios, but you can get them all online nowadays anyway, quite nicely. And they've all been sort of Warhammered up a bit, if you know what I mean. They've all been made a bit more modern with modern artwork done by fans. And I have printed all that off and have it nicely ring binded in old school ways. So you can still play this game. The rules are still available. You can get them online for free if you know where to look. And there's no real information in here about Warhammer as a world. This is about 1 page worth of background story with the map there, the old world. But that's it. There's just like 1 page and that's it. It doesn't really go into great depth about Warhammer as a universe, you know. So you can still play this as a very generic monster killing, hero killing game. If you want to delve into the dungeons underneath the mountains of the old world, I still think this is a great game to do that with. It is vicious. Games can take a very long time from mission to mission if you've got to roll up randomly and you just don't know where you're going. And every time you roll, you just get deeper and deeper and deeper and never find a quest room to go downstairs. And if you map it constantly, it can get big and big and big. But that was one of the fun things about it. You know, you could leave the dungeon, get out, go back in later, set it back up again as you drew it up, and try again. You know, 1 hero left, the others are dead, get out of there. Roll up 3 new characters to go back in with him, have another bash. So it was tricky, and I think it was on purpose. I think Jervis Johnson was obviously wanting to kill all those little kids that had grown up on HeroQuest and thought, oh, great, let's get the next one. And then realised, oh my god, this is rock hard. Yeah, don't get anything for nothing here, kids. You've got to fight your way through. So, yeah, that's Advanced HeroQuest. A bit of a classic, a forgotten classic. And you might think Warhammer Quest is better. You're probably right. But for me, this was the one. So, thanks for watching. And I'll see you again.